Be Your Best You, the Passionate to Purpose podcast with David Delaney. Hello, good morning, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. This morning's guest is often referred to as a people magnet or the mad piano man. Dezy Walls is a writer, performer, director, concert pianist. Well, as he says himself, he does concerts playing a piano. And he is a creative being, which he believes we all are, and it's what keeps us all sane. In 2019, he won the IMRO Radio Drama Award for his play Searching for Daddly Dee, and he adds this to his numerous songwriting awards in both comedy and romantic genres. Dezy joins us this morning to tell us all about his journey. Dezy, how are you? It's good to have you here.
Great, Dave. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Dezy, haven't seen you in a long time.
It's good to see you. Of course, listeners can't see us, so we are on Zoom recording this.
Oh, right.
And you will see it on the YouTube channel. But yeah, it is good to see you. Where are you? Where in the world are you right now?
I am just overlooking Derrynane, where Daniel O'Connell used to live. And we live up there. We can see the beach from here. We can see the islands. We can see everything. It's just a bit of paradise, you know. It's like it's fabulous part of the world.
Okay. And you've seen the world. You've seen the world, Dezy. I know that the work you've done. You're a performer. You're an actor. You're a writer. You self-describe on your website as a creative type, which covers a lot of stuff. Tell us a bit about those different things and how they've come about, and how I suppose the journey that brought you to looking over Derrynane.
Yes. You know what? The turning point was around the time I met you. It was about 2006. I had been playing piano in a bar in Kinsale, and it was going very well, but it wasn't always going very well with the people who actually ran the bar, one in particular. And eventually that came to a head. But around that time, I had started writing plays, including Not the Life I Ordered. And you were the first person to ever produce Not the Life I Ordered in Portlaoise. We had done it in a small way over a Thai restaurant in Kinsale for a sellout audience, 17 people each night for the first 2 nights. And on the first of those nights, I had sold tickets previously to a lady from America who was visiting, and I ended up marrying her. And again, you know part of that story because she wrote for a CD. And we became pen pals, and I went over there, and we live here together in Derrynane. And how we got here was that I went to America. We got married in London. She came here. I went to America. We tried to find a way of working things out and settling down and getting into a way where we both could make a living. And eventually the crash came in 2008. And in 2008, then we started to travel around the country, and I was doing concerts for people who had known me from Kinsale. I would contact them and say, do you want to do a house concert? And they'd invite all their friends, and we might have 50 or 60 people in a huge room, you know, the size of the houses in America. So I started to do house concerts all over the country. And then people who were at those house concerts would arrange other house concerts and so forth. And it spread out a bit, and we traveled the whole country, and we were looking for a place to settle down because she lived in Florida in a town called Naples, which is a very posh, expensive town. And it is not anywhere where either of us really wanted to live because it has a lack of diversity in its style. I mean, I don't see diversity as just a color or anything like that, but it's an attitude. Do you know what I mean? There's a way of looking at things. Yeah.
The piano, we're not going to gloss over. It wasn't any old piano that you were playing. And a lot of the times that people would see you playing piano. Gentlemen cycling a bike while playing a piano, that was a bike. Tell us about that.
And the whole idea of the piano bike was to get publicity. So people would come up and say, oh, that's great, fascinating piano bike. And then they'd forget about the piano bike and ask me, so what are you doing? What shows are you doing? But that didn't work. Okay. Because they only wanted to talk about the piano bike.
Right.
And they only wanted to watch the wheels going around. And they didn't and you say, well, I'll play a song for you now from my show. And what show? Well, tell us about the piano bike. How do you steer it? With your arse. So that was basically it. So I've had 4 piano bikes.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Did you ever get a ticket? Did you ever get a ticket for the piano bike?
no, actually, the guards were always very nice. I even had the guards guide me out of traffic a few times. And then when I had one in America, which some friends built, that was the most sophisticated one I'd had. First one was built in Holland. It was then converted in Ireland. And then I had a really fancy one built in America, which unfortunately I wasn't able to bring back. I have the piano part of it still, but I would need a really good woodworker to finish it here.
So for listeners, it is the frame of a piano with a bike mechanism built into it that you can cycle and play.
Yeah, and the idea of it was to get publicity and get people's attention. And as you can see, it has got people's attention. You still remember it so many years later. And but you know, the idea, even when you saw it, was we had Not the Life I Ordered on stage in Portlaoise, and this was to publicize Not the Life I Ordered. What it did was it publicized the piano bike.
Yeah.
So people say, "I just see the guy with the piano bike in town," instead of saying, "Did you see that there's a great show on in town?" And that was the idea. So I don't know, maybe somebody knows that little switch. How you can get, hey, you noticed my piano bike to come to the show.
Okay. So from Portlaoise, I mean, the show Not the Life, you toured that. You toured it across Ireland. You went to London, I think, with that for a while. You went to America.
Yeah.
It grew and developed.
As a show, it got better and better. We did it in Portland with 2 girls in the lead parts, even though it's if you knew the story, well, you do know the story of it, it's actually impossible because it involves a girl turning into a girl, and you can't really do that. But we found a solution to that. As long as she didn't put the lipstick to her lips, and was dressed in a little suit, she could pass it off as the uncle she was playing. Okay. So it was, I won't go into that because that'd be a lovely thing to say again, but it's mostly been done by 2 men.
Okay.
It's a two-hander. It started with myself and my brother Peter as 2 brothers who were kind of clashed. One was an accountant who's getting married the next day in his middle age, and the other is a musician who comes to stay with him because he's been thrown out by yet another girlfriend. And it's their interaction on that day before the wedding, and how who's going to straighten out who, because they both need straightening out.
Okay. Interesting. And is there anywhere coming up? I know things have taken a turn, like things like house concerts, all that kind of stuff. It's obviously not happening at the moment.
Yes.
Are there plans? I know you're artistic director of the Small Roads Theatre Festival in Kinsale.
Yes.
Yes. And I know Not the Life has been performed as part of that. Are there plans kind of for later 2021, 22 for Not the Life and the Kinsale Festival?
Yes, there's in Kenmare, yeah. Did you know they had 4 letters out of the 6 in common? Anyway, just thought I'd mention that. Kenmare, Kinsale.
It's all down that direction.
Only 2 letters in the difference. Yeah. But Kenmare is in County Kerry.
Kenmare, yes.
And it's about 50 minutes drive from here, but I've been artistic director since I started it in 2016. 2016 went brilliantly with a lot of things I hadn't planned, and people coming in at the last minute and saving my life in different ways. But that's the kind of community it is. It's great. In 2017, I tried to do too much, bring it to some other towns and so forth, and had one of those famous crashes, which people have who take chances, which you have to accept. That's part of life. In 2018, we cut it back a bit and we made it tight, and we did pretty well. And in 2019, we had our best year, and it was fabulous. And then 2020, you know about that.
And what happened? 2019, Dezy, you won an IMRO Radio Award for a play, a different kind of a play.
Yes.
And that was called Searching for Daddly Dee.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
In I'm talking, it seems all numbers now, but in 2017, myself and Peter, my brother, who you know well, and who played Not the Life of Me, we we said we would write together something about my father, who had died in a plane crash in 1968. So 2018 was to be the 50th anniversary. And so we started to write together, and Peter withdrew for we didn't fall out about it, but he didn't feel he was able to go into the depths of it, that it was going to hurt too much. So I said, okay, I'd go ahead and write it myself. And eventually we went down to Wexford for the anniversary in 2018 on the 24th of March. Very nicely arranged by the people of Rosslare. They remember the crash more than anybody does, even though they lost nobody, but the idea that it happened just right in the water, right in front of them.
That was Tusker Rock, was it?
Yeah, Tusker Rock. And a fabulous group of people running it down there. And they organized for the Navy to take us out around the place where the accident actually happened. It was a fabulous day. In fact, just 2 days ago was the 3rd anniversary of that, the 53rd anniversary. So we remembered, we were posting pictures of that and everything. And funnily enough, something that was a tragedy has now become happy memories of that day. And that's thanks to the people of Rosslare. It was just fabulous. But later that evening, we went with all the family, my siblings, and there were 12 of us all together, and their children, and there's a lot of them too. And we went to a place in Wexford where I put on this play which I had written, a one-man show called Searching for Daddly Dee. And the show went well. It wasn't perfect. First performances never are. But my nephew, who is the producer of the Pat Kenny show, said to me, that could make a radio play. He also does documentaries. He had won awards himself for doing documentaries. So he said to me, it would really work as a radio play. So I said, okay, we'll do that. And I spent the next year, we have a fabulous studio down here in the wilds of Kerry, in Creation Studios in Ballinskelligs. I shouldn't say too much because I don't want other people using up his time, because I love working with Terry. But so I worked with Terry. We converted it into a radio play. It had to be exactly 46 minutes long. And we got it to News Talk. Owen, my nephew, also gave us advice on what works in radio, what doesn't work in radio. And we got it to News Talk in time for the 51st anniversary of the accident. It's not a story about the accident. It's a story about me at 19 years old, and my relationship with my father, and the last time I saw him, and our relationship up to that, and our relationship after that. You do continue relationships even when people are gone, as you know. And so the story, we knew the story worked very well. They loved it in News Talk, people who didn't know me at all, because it wasn't his department it was going to, it was another department. And they gave fabulous feedback, and they put it on. And a few months later, it was about July, Owen got on to me and he said, did you hear you've been nominated for an IMRO? I mean, that's like an Oscar, I said, only it's
big
radio.
deal. It's a big thing.
Yeah. And Ireland, it's the best radio of the year. So they do it in all different sections. The best radio of Ireland in the year. And I'd been nominated for drama. So there's five nominations. And then they got on to me and they said, we don't want to say this too loud because this drama award has been won by RTE for 11 years in a row, but we think we're going to win it this year. So I said, okay, good. And so we went to Kilkenny for the actual presentation. And as it happens, once they've called out RTE in 2nd and 3rd place, I knew we had it. And it was a lovely feeling. So that it hasn't led to a lot since. I don't think they do. And I've learned not to say award. Don't say I won an award. People say, yeah, everybody's won awards. Wait till I tell you about my awards. But I have the award on the piano downstairs to prove it if you want to go. Yeah.
I don't doubt you one bit.
Anyway, anyone can listen to it by going to the archives of News Talk, and it's probably the work I'm proudest of.
Yeah. And we can.
I wrote it. Do you know what it is? And this is a thing I say to people. I didn't write it to make a success. I wrote it for my father and for myself, and for my own. I had the opposite idea to Peter. I had to go back into it. So there's a line in it where my Auntie Pat says to me, Dezy, it's been 3 days and you didn't cry. You haven't cried. And Pat contacted me after she'd heard the show, and she said, because she's still alive, but she said, did you cry afterwards? I said, yeah, I cried once about 3 months later. I think I cried 3 years later. And then when I wrote the play, I cried 100 times.
And Dezy, did you revisit, like, we're talking about Not the Life and the development of Not the Life, say, as a play, you know, piece of theatre. Are you leaving Daddly Dee as is, or is it something that you might revisit?
Oh, I do it. I still do it live. I do it live sometimes. I've applied to theatres. You don't even get well, you do get replies sometimes saying, sorry, that Tuesday isn't available. But it's okay. I do it as a one-man show, and it works really well live. And as much as that, look, normally my normal shows are to bring people, have them leaving the room in laughter. This one has them leaving the room feeling in touch with their bereavements. And that's what I love. People come up and say, I just couldn't stop thinking of my brother at the time, as you know, and there's so they get in touch with their feelings, and they come away with a feeling of, they feel better. That's the thing, and so do I. So it's a great show, but it's not my usual. I usually do stuff that takes the mickey out of things.
Right. 12 in the family, Dezy. Where do you sit in that? Where
I'm second. I have an older sister who has a lot of sense, so they kind of balanced it.
Okay.
I came next.
Where did the creative streak come out of? Was it always there? Were you always the one writing, doodling, playing piano?
Okay. Early in the story of Daddly Dee, I talk about Granny Wall's front room and how Claire and I would sit on the 4th step from the bottom of the stairs, hidden from the door, but we could hear the music and laughter going on in there. And I believe that's where it came from. They didn't intend it to be, because there were no professional entertainers in my family, and they had a lot of wariness about professional entertainment. You know, my father thought, as I was fairly good at maths, I should be a mathematician. And there was that's very much like, there was something inside me. The point was I wasn't able to show it. Do you know, sometimes people say, well, if you were extremely talented, we'd understand that you have this drive to want to go into show business, but you don't show a huge amount of talent. I think that's one of the strange things. You're often drawn to something where you don't show a flamboyant, you know the way you have flamboyant entertainers, you say, oh, that guy should be on a stage. Well, I never had that, and I never looked like that, and I never sound like that. And I'm not a natural funny man, and yet I've had audiences laughing the whole way through. I do a lot of homework before I do anything. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of preparation. So a lot of my work, and even Not the Life I Ordered, I spent 15 years developing that into what is now a very good play, because I was able to write funny songs at that time. And as you know, the play is littered with funny songs, but that wasn't enough. The dialogue was not as good as a play should be. So I got feedback all the time as I went from directors and producers and things like that. And everybody who said, do you mind if I say something? I said, of course, come on. And the ideas came in all the time, and it was wonderful. And the dialogue improved. And because that dialogue improved, I improved on my other plays. And that's probably why Daddly Dee was good, because I had learned to write dialogue.
Do you have a favorite song of yours, or are they all part? There's one, I have a favorite one which I'll share. You probably know what the favorite one, because everyone I think who hears your work, as he has a favorite song. I think it's the same song.
Yes.
But do you have a favorite song in your repertoire?
The one you're talking about may be one of my favorite songs, because it sold a lot of CDs for me at gigs. So I would go to gigs, and people would say, is the I'd say the stress management song, and they'd say, yeah. I'd say, is that on your CD? And I'd say, wait now, yes it is, but unfortunately I only have 3 CDs with me. And they go, I'll have the 3. No, I'm sorry, I have to, to be fair, I have to. So it's 3 people get the street. Oh, look, I found another 20. And, and this was I honestly, having that song on the CD was 90% of what it sold. Of course, people also liked When I Met Amanda, but that was, you know, the child in people that likes that one.
Yeah.
But
I was actually talking to a lady who is the founder of the Power of Words literary festival in Abbeyleix, and her name is
yes,
Amanda, and
yes.
she recalls seeing Not the Life somewhere on the tour, and we had a conversation recently, and it actually came up in conversation. She started singing the song Amanda, and I thought, you know, that was pretty cool. Stress management, Dezy. Let's talk about stress management in the context of, I suppose, the current climate and how important. I mean, people who are listening in think, oh, he's a nice chap. He's quite quirky. How would he write a stress management song? Okay, we're not gonna go into it because people can download it or buy it buy the CD. Stress management for you right now. What is it? How important is it in the current climate?
Well, I'm probably a different person than I was at the time that I wrote that. At the time that I wrote that, I had been trying to cycle a piano bike. This is before I ever had my first piano bike. I had wanted to cycle one from Cork to Dublin and into the Late Late Show for this huge charity event, the national charity event. And Gay Byrne was still around at the time. And I wanted to cycle it in to Gay Byrne. And of course, everybody loved the idea in theory. Oh, great! We'll be ready for you. Cycle a piano bike on this comedy day, like into the Late Late Show. But so I was going to get cyclists to join me all the way up there. Anyway, just to cut a long story short, I had my whole room covered with plans. I had people arranged in all sorts of ways. The Cork Lord Mayor was going to see me off, and people all along the road were going to help me and everything. And suddenly the engineers who were supposed to be building the piano bike got on to me 3 weeks ago, and they said, we're kind of stuck. And I said, what point are you stuck at? We haven't got started yet. We really don't know anything about building piano bikes. Okay. And that was it. And now I had in the room a piano, which my aunt had given me because, you know, she thought it should be given to somebody who'd play it. And it's a beautiful black piano. And I had sat for 3 months while I worked on this crazy plan about cycling a non-existent piano bike to Dublin from Cork. And there was this piano, and I had forbidden myself to play it. I was working so hard, I didn't allow myself to play that piano for all that time. And I looked at the piano, and the piano looked back at me. And it was like it was the only friend in the world I had at that moment. I couldn't go back, couldn't go forward in my plans. Nothing was going to work, and a whole lot of people were going to be angry with me. I sat down at the piano, and 1 hour and 40 minutes later, that song was completed. Not a word has ever been changed. I was so angry at that time. Now, nowadays, my attitude would be more, I find this stressful, as anybody would, being locked up. But I possibly have never been busier. Okay. There are less deadlines. I'm able to work at things. I've just finished a song which was commissioned for a whiskey, even though I don't drink myself. But the idea of as an Irish whiskey, so it's maybe one of the first ever really Irish songs I've written, and I wrote it about the area around here. And like you ask sometimes what's my favorite song, but it's always the last one I wrote, the one I've just written. It's always my personal favorite, because that's what you do. You put your heart and soul into it. Wow, I love that one. And then you forget about it and you move on to the next one. You know? So yeah, I find it stressful, but I know it's more stressful for other people. I have Claire here with me. We don't go out much. I'm in that just over 70 bracket, which are supposed to be treated very carefully. Though I missed out on my injection in the local doctor because I wasn't registered. I don't go to doctors, and that apparently is you don't fit into the system if you don't go to doctors. But that's so. I have since got registered. So I just say that to people. Anybody who doesn't normally go to a doctor, you should register yourself somewhere, because otherwise they won't call you. That's how they work. They're working through the doctors. So I find it stressful, but I can do lovely walks around here. mean, I can walk 5 kilometers and not meet anybody particularly if it's not a holiday or a weekend. I know it's much tougher for people in a lot of other situations. It is very tough, but I honestly believe if we don't lock down hard, we don't get this finished. We should have done it in the first place. I'm a great admirer of Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand. And people say, oh yeah, but that's 1,000 miles from anywhere. It doesn't matter. They've got airports, they've got all sorts of things, and they control them, and they still control them. And it's big news if a case breaks out in New Zealand. Boy, would we like that here.
Absolutely, 100%. The next 12 months for Dezy, what are your plans?
Well, I hope we'll be back on stage fairly soon. I'm using this period of time to do more interesting things. I'm starting a podcast myself. Now, my podcast will be slightly different as much as that I will interview people, but what I'll end up with is a story. My voice might be taken out of a lot of it, and it's edited down to a dramatic story and it's for, I call it the famously unknown. The really I know so many really talented people, and I'm sure I'm among them myself, who nobody knows, or very few people know of, right? So I would say and the really talented, that's up to people to judge. Everybody judge for themselves. But I have been all my life meeting people who have wonderful talent, and they're not famous. Nobody knows who they are. And I'm going to make a program basically of that and let people hear what's out there. It's just an oversupply. It's not, I'm not criticizing, well, I am criticizing some of the people who are famous. As you know, there's a lot of boredom in the world, but there are a lot of wonderful entertainers out there who are known, but I'm just saying there are a lot of wonderful entertainers who are not that well known. And I love the idea of doing a podcast with them. It will be interesting, and it'll be laid out in a sort of story form. We will edit it so that it ends up with them telling their story, and their music or their acting or whatever it is coming in between and showing what they do, or their comedy or whatever it is. So,
is this the life you ordered, Dezy?
It absolutely is, Dave. Compared now to when I knew you 15 years ago, I was trying very hard. I was trying very hard to be successful. I would say now I have a much more like in the moment attitude to life. I think it's the only way. There is no past, there is no future, but there's great joy to be had in the moment, particularly for creative people. When you're actually doing something creative, you forget the world. You forget it all around you. It's when you get to the end of it and say, that's wonderful. I wonder, can I get it published? That's when you start having worries and stresses. I'm not saying you shouldn't get it published. Of course, people should try to get their stuff out there. That's part of the art too. But keep it as part of the art. Don't make it as I mustn't be any good if I'm not famous. That's not true. It's just not true. You can be really good at what you do, and there's no shame that the world doesn't know that. If you play for 5 people and they love it, then look what you've done. Look what you've done. If they go away happy, if you play for 500 people, they go away happy. It doesn't matter. If you play, it doesn't matter. I think when it gets beyond the 500, you start losing touch with people. But anyway, not that I've tried it much, but you understand, it's the actual work. And that's what I do now. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of different types of writing, and I talk to a lot of other people about their work and their writing. I do a lot more studio work than I used to do. And working with Terry Gordon is a dream because we're slightly different. He's very, very pernickety about sound and things like that. And then it's like everything is about sound and so forth. And I'm very pernickety about drama and expression and how something comes across. And I'm very much into theatre now. And I've done, the Small Roads Festival is an amateur thing, really. People think we make a fortune out of it, but we don't. In fact, I've lost money on it. Because theatre is a very hard thing to make money out of. The amateur standard can come up to an amazing level. I mean, you go to these amateur championships, you will see some stuff which is not great, but you'll see brilliant stuff. They have the short plays and they have the long plays, and they're all run by amateurs. And some of it is just top class standard. And these people go home to their ordinary jobs after it. So there's also those type of people, not just professionals who aren't famous, but there's amateurs who never wanted to be famous. The amount of talent around is just amazing.
Excellent, excellent. Dezy, we're just coming up on time, so if you could just tell us where we can find you. The website, Dezy.com, D-E-Z-Y, that's DezyWalls.com.
Dezy Walls, yeah, DezyWalls.com.
Yeah.
That's the best place to find me, and there you'll find my phone number and everything. I'm not a terribly private person. You know, my phone isn't ringing off the hook all day, but anybody's welcome to ring me. Okay. And so my phone number is 086 100 2360, but you know, you can also go to the website. Dezy@DezyWalls.com is my email.
Okie dokie. Dezy, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you, and great to talk to you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dave.
And that's it for another week. Thanks for joining us this morning, and do join us next time on Be Your Best You. Have a good week.